Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, we know that the last couple of weeks has been incredibly tumultuous in terms of weather systems that have moved across the United States, and this map just shows you through Saturday. I just wanted to show you through Saturday what the last couple of weeks look like in terms of total accumulated precipitation. Certainly with each system that's kind of curled up across the country and moved on off toward the northeast, we have seen an abundant amount of Gulf moisture coming in here into parts of the Mid-South and the lower Mississippi River Valley. And we've seen some locations in there over the last couple of weeks pick up well over a foot of rainfall. And it has been making the flooding problem in that region quite a bit worse. In addition to that, look at this. Just in the last 10 days, we have added 2,182 reports of severe weather, including a very rough end of the week over here across the eastern part of the country. This has been a crazy mid-part of April, and we're going to have to take a look at what the pattern is going to bring us here in the near term, but I want to show you a couple more things about this past weekend. This is a snapshot, 1 p.m. on Saturday, that central time here, looking at the temperatures across the country. And we had this pesky upper level low sitting and spinning right over here, really over parts of Ohio, Virginia, West Virginia, getting back into Kentucky. And I want to take that drawing off there and just show you this corridor of cool air that these folks had to endure in this area, where on either side, look, you go this way and this way, you get into 60s, 70s, and 80s pretty fast. So it was a pretty rough go of it on Saturday to that area with just some leftover rain showers, but just a neat way to visualize the flow of the atmosphere here as you see that. Now, as we got into the day on Sunday, Easter Sunday here, we were watching a couple of systems. The first one here moving through the north central plains. You can kind of see the cyclonic or the counterclockwise spin here. We're going to talk about the rain that we're going to try to have to deal with here in the parts of the north central plains and upper Midwest throughout the day on Monday. But I want to draw your attention to what was going on over in parts of Colorado and Kansas and Nebraska, because into the evening storms erupted here ahead of this, and we added another 41 reports of severe weather, including a lot of straight line wind damage and some pretty big hail. And so with this kind of setup and where things are going, well, the precipitation we've seen over the last 24 hours, we're going to see expanded to this area. And I'm watching Texas this week as a system comes right here out of California and sneaks across the southern United States in the coming days. So we're going to take a look here at what our next 5 days holds. So that's what these two maps are showing here. On the left, I got European model. This is the operational European model total accumulated precip. And again, we've got system number 1 that's moving through this area, and then the shore wave that sneaks out of California and gets over here into Texas. Got chances early this week for some strong to severe storms throughout Texas, certainly picking up some heavy rainfall, and this is going to slowly migrate toward the southeast with time. Now, a point that I want to make about this map is that there's going to be several places around the country that are not going to see any precipitation at all this week. I know you kind of see, wow, it looks like the whole thing's filled in there, but it's not. This is just the model resolution. This is what it looks like here. And you're going to have several places that miss out on some precip. One thing we do see is that much of the country is going to have a warmer week. About the only place that's going to be, potentially cooler than average is where this upper level trough brings in multiple days of rain for parts of Texas, and it slides toward the southeast with time. But over the next 5 days, we're going to continue with a pretty warm pattern, like I said, across much of the country. So with that as our overview, let's kind of dig into some of the details here before we stretch this out a little longer term. We're going to go straight to the upper levels of the atmosphere and talk about the 3 things that we're going to be dealing with at the beginning of the week. First, this is still the remnants of that upper level low that bothered us throughout much of the weekend across the eastern part of the country. We're also dealing with this little shortwave trough in here that's going to cause the rain from parts of South Dakota to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And then here's the larger trough, like I said, that slides over to Texas. The other 2 things to be paying attention to, we do have this trough sitting over Alaska, and you're going to watch a ridge build into Greenland, which is going to allow this trough here to really gain some position across much of Canada, and that's important for the northern tier of the United States. So I want to show you what each of these things do over the next 15 days, and let's just kind of step through with our European ensemble here. Now, as I get us through the middle of this week, what do we see? We see the first shortwave moving through the Great Lakes states here. The second one that's digging down into northern Mexico, eventually gets over into Texas. And this is why out ahead of this, plenty of moisture and a multi-day thunderstorm activity event that's setting up in parts of Texas. But notice what happens by the time we get into Thursday. You can see that the northern part of the United States seems to be occupied here by lower heights or troughing. troughing is what we call that. And because of that, we're going to be seeing throughout the end of this week and the beginning of the weekend, we're going to see multiple little shortwaves that keep kind of coming around this bigger trough feature that's sitting in this area. And with each one of those, we kick off the potential for, and I hate to say it, some northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes precipitation. Now, if you're south of this line that I'm drawing here, this is going to be warm. You're going to be much warmer than average. And as you creep north of that line I just drew there, as we get past this next 5 days into day 5 to day 10, that's where things are going to cool down a little bit, at least in the near term, okay? What do we see beyond this weekend? Well, watch what ends up happening here. Once we get into the very end of April and into the beginning of May, the European ensemble, which it's been kind of advertising this pattern now for a few weeks, tends to want to put this ridge feature somewhere here over parts of the Midwest. And really, if it's anchored a little bit farther toward the south and east, we have to be watching out for what that means for the precipitation that has to come around this. And I'm going to kind of talk about that here in just a few minutes. But certainly, even though the next 5 days are warm, and then we get into a bit of a cooler pattern for the northern tier of states, we go back into this pattern, which again is not one that brings in any sort of sustained cold as we get into the month of May. Now, what does precipitation look like? Well, here's kind of a higher resolution view of this. Let's just get you here to midday Monday. Remember, the first shortwave kind of comes right in through this area, so this is where we're watching the widely scattered showers and storms. We're going to be dealing with this leftover cutoff low that just keeps meandering up the East Coast, causing problems. And what you'll see with time, as I take those drawings off there, well, as we stretch things out, Wisconsin this evening, this is Monday evening, getting into Michigan overnight hours, it's going to be just soggy go of it. But you can kind of see here, stretching right in through this area, this front that's going to sneak through. So don't be surprised if we do get on Monday some widely scattered showers in through this area. But this front is connecting back to the trough that finally emerged into this area. And this is where we get into this multi-day thunderstorm event here, starting on Tuesday, really Monday night into Tuesday for Texas and Oklahoma. Look at it. See the storms just kind of resurging in that area. Meanwhile, Northeast gets what's left over of that thing that was in the middle part of the country to start our week. And look, you can still see the storms going here in parts of Texas as I move through the middle part of the day on Tuesday, getting into Tuesday afternoon and evening. And you can see how the two systems are connected, right? You see that front that kind of stretches right through there. So this whole corridor in here has at least the chance for seeing some widely scattered showers and storms throughout the day on Tuesday into Tuesday night. But then again, look, by Wednesday, we're still dealing with that same system going through Texas. So Texas, you've got a soggy early part of this week. Southeast, you're going to get to enjoy a pretty large ridge, keeping things relatively dry. I mean, check it out. This is through 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Again, what do we see? There's the lighter precipitation moving through parts of the north central plains, but really getting into the Great Lakes states. You can see the front dragged in through here and the heavy rain here. But big dome of higher atmospheric pressure, southeast, you get to start off with a relatively dry week. Same thing for California. Same thing for much of the Pacific Northwest until this pattern kind of changes. So let's kind of take a look at our next big events after this. We're going to switch over to the European model, which gives us that longer range outlook. I'm going to get you all the way to Wednesday morning since we've talked about this time period already. So once we get into Wednesday, what are we watching? Well, you can still see the precip from Texas stretching up here into parts of Illinois and Indiana, but this is widely scattered stuff in through this area, okay? As I move things forward, we're going to watch that cooler air toward the end of the week sag into the north central plains when that upper level trough that's sitting over Texas finally moves by the time we get into Thursday midday into the lower Mississippi River Valley. Now, folks in the lower Mississippi River Valley don't want to look at this because you're just sick of rain in this area. Good news is this system is nothing like the ones that you've seen. Will it have Gulf moisture? Yes. Is there the risk of thunderstorm activity? Yes. But this is not the all-out soaking, massive rainfall events we've been seeing for the last 2 to 3 weeks. And it moves pretty quickly through Thursday afternoon and evening into Friday morning all the way to the southeast. If you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, I don't think you're going to see precipitation this week, and any sort of widespread precipitation until next Friday. So you got a relatively dry week coming up. Now, we don't fully have the details on the system that emerges next Saturday. So this is now next Saturday morning. You can see right now there's a low pressure center that's moving through parts of western Iowa. That's where the current model runs have this one pinned down at. And again, there's a deep upper level trough, and we're just watching short waves wiggle around that trough, invigorating these systems. So again, this is another round of precip for the north central plains. This isn't the super heavy stuff, but any precipitation on this area, because remember, this area I've just circled here, really focused in on this area, has got a major surplus of water right now in the soil just due to how snowy things were and the recent rainfall that's come through. It looks as though this next system may have enough cold air that through parts of northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and northern Michigan, we could be bringing in some snow. South of that, nope, this one's going to be quite warm. But that system moving through next weekend sneaks all the way through, gets over to the eastern part of the United States. Now, beyond this, we really don't have any details pinned down, but we just keep seeing little systems kind of go through, and you're going to notice that if we get to the beginning of May and some sort of ridging event sets up here, systems are going to go around this, keeping things, not, this isn't overly wet, but not allowing things to dry down a lot as we progress into the very beginning of May here, okay? So our pattern stays active, but you're going to find a lot of folks get missed by a lot of this precip, and they're going to get a lot of field work done in the next 10 days. So to recap those temperatures, remember days 1 through 5, this is getting us through the end of this week, is shown to you over here on the left. The only cool place is really tucked in here with that upper level trough warmth all around it. But as the upper level trough gets established over central Canada, remember what I said, as we get into from day 5 to day 10, north of that line I just drew has the greater risk of seeing some cooler temperatures. But we see here that these cooler temperatures are not the bitterly cold air, but slightly cooler than average. South of that line, things are going to stay relatively warm. And again, as we just try to assess this pattern as we get out into the beginning of May, I've got two different models. I have the European ensemble on the left, and I have the US, the GFS ensemble here on the right. And they're both kind of honing in on a similar picture. You can kind of see a trough feature here and here, but this ridge sitting right over this area is kind of a common feature in both. And so that's given me a little bit more, the confidence that the beginning of May here, things are going to warm up. And generally when we see a pattern that sets up with the southeastern ridge, you tend to get this kind of precipitation. So if I just look over the next 15 days, getting us all the way out to May 7th here at the pattern, we do see that as that ridge gets established twice, remember, start off this week and again after we get past the weekend, if we do see some ridging down here, that tends to keep this area a bit drier than normal. Remember though, you still have a system coming through, but on the whole drier than normal. And we're just gonna have to watch the periphery of this for some at times some wetter conditions here. Okay. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest, California, and actually much of the Western United States, you're going to be drier than average as we look out over the next 10 to 15 days. Okay, quick update on South America. We do see that the European ensemble did pick up on its weekend runs on a little bit wetter bias here in Brazil. Remember, this is a safrinha crop. This is really helping what was already a pretty good safrinha crop for Brazil. Argentina, as they're going through harvest here of their full season stuff, it's a little bit wet. Forecast to be wet in the northern part of Argentina, but this again is just going to slow some things down, but overall not affecting, I think, the quality and quantity of this crop. What I want to finish with, and I want to encourage you to pause the video here and just take a close look at this. This is the year-on-year vegetative health index map, so we're comparing last year through April 15th to this year. Wherever you see these colors, the crop from space looks more healthy, looks more green than a year ago. And what we can see, again, look at Brazil, look at Argentina. So compared to a year ago, the safrinha crop in Brazil and some of this full season stuff we grow in Argentina looks really good. But you can take a look at other places around the world here to kind of see how things match up to a year ago, which can give us a good benchmark and as we progress through our weather forecast throughout the rest of this spring. With that, though, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming out each day this week at my.nutrienagsolutions.com. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.